Greetings, anime fan guys and fan gals. The spring season is nearing its climax, and that means it's time for me to talk about what I think is, for me at least, one of the most disappointing anime of the spring season, and that would be Darling in the Franxx, or perhaps I should call it Failure in the Franxx, because it's actually quite terrible. This probably isn't going to be a popular opinion. Not that I'm the only one who was disappointed with this show, and quickly beforehand, I am fully aware that there are still 3 episodes left to air. I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be a 24 episode series, but I feel like the most recent bullshit climax or peak of the story, or whatever you want to call it, there's been like 4 of those. I don't know how many. But I'm aware it's not quite finished. However, this is one case where I feel like, even if by some miracle the last 3 episodes were able to make this the best mecha anime of all time, A, that's extremely unlikely, and B, that wouldn't change my verdict on what is still 90% of the show. So let's just say it really doesn't matter at this point what those last 3 episodes are. Other than the fact that I won't be able to to comment on whatever the hell that climax, the final ending, whatever it happens to be. I'm sure it's not going to be anything worth talking about, really, but unless it's just so bad, unless the ending of the anime is just so god-awful that it does warrant discussion, and maybe I'll have a follow-up if that turns out to be the case, because I will watch the last 3 episodes, of course, just out of morbid curiosity. But I'm going to say it right here, right now. I've gone to bat for this show for a long time. I feel like one of the last defenders of Darling in the Franxx, because goddamn, it is garbage. Hot garbage. Yeah, I've defended this show for quite a while, because I wanted to like it. Hell, I wanted to love it, but it's just trash. I mean, I can't remember the last time, well, I could probably remember the last time an anime really dragged its plot so meanderingly, so tediously. Oh my god, it's like the first 12 episodes of this show, and that's half the show, is entirely based on just the main cast of characters, all of which are pretty goddamn rote and bland, including the protagonist. It's just setting up these characters, and in the most, I want to say, like, in the most, like, dull, conventional way possible, and there's no drama, there's no real stakes in this show. The only even real villains we have for so much of it are just these monsters, the Kalaxar, which are not interesting in any way. It's okay to have mindless monsters in your story that serve as the threat. Gunbuster did this really well, but Gunbuster wasn't about the threat, the alien monsters. It wasn't about that. It was about the characters. And the characters were interesting, and you rooted for them, and it only took 6 episodes to get its entire story across, with most of the character setup being done in the first episode of that 6 episode OVA. So you really have to think, like, and I'm going to be making a lot of comparisons here, but yeah, Darling in the Franxx just really drags its feet. There is no plot. There is no plot in this anime. We get an introduction to 02, we get an introduction to the main protagonist, and then the next, like 11 to 12 episodes is just painstakingly dragging out these character introductions and developing these characters mostly one episode at a time. And by the time we feel like we even know this cast at all, it's like 12 episodes in, and that's a really bad sign. That is just bad writing. Because for like the first several episodes, I didn't know enough about these characters or really like know their names or whatever to really care about any of them. We only really get a decent introduction to our main protagonist, whatever his name is. Well, let's just call him the Shinji stand-in. And 02, who, you know, I only know her name because she gets the most, I want to say, amusing introduction, and her character design is, you know, mildly amusing because she's the poster girl. But, yeah, it goes absolutely nowhere for several episodes. And I really wanted to love this one because, God knows, it's pulling from so many other mecha anime that are so much better. Obviously, the visuals and the aesthetic are very reminiscent of Evangelion, of Die Buster, of Gurren Lagann, of Eureka 7, you freaking name it. It looks like all of those. It's obviously following, in the most shallow way possible, all of those, but with none of the depth. And even the animation, which is fine by Trigger standards, like, you know, it's certainly not as inventive or interesting or inspired as Kill la Kill or Ninja Slayer or anything else Trigger has done, even though on a technical level it's, you know, it's right there in, like, you know, the middle ground. It's like, it's fine, it's a slick looking anime, but even the visuals are just so evocative and derivative of better anime, better mecha anime, obviously Gainax most of all, you know. And it's just like, especially after having rewatched Die Buster recently, to be completely honest, if you want what Darling in the Franxx is trying to serve up, and you want it in a shorter, better anime, just go watch Die Buster. It's got a very similar aesthetic, but far better executed. It's only 6 episodes long, as I've said in my previous video. That's a far better series, and it covers a lot more ground, a lot less time. You know who all these characters are within the first 2 episodes. This show, for 12 episodes, is like slice of life. Even the mecha action, even if you're just really into mecha and you just want to see giant robots do giant robot shit, even that is so boilerplate and so lacking in any real inspiration or uniqueness. Like, okay, the whole butt handle thing, where, you know, the whole process for how they control the Franxx mechas is, I think that's the most inspired thing in the entire show. I mean, that's been memed already, but it's like, that's really the only unique hook they have for this whole show, and that's all it is. It's just, it made some memes, but it doesn't give the show any depth. There's no, you know, it loses its, it loses even its humor pretty quickly in that regard. Like, there's just nothing to get out of this. There's no deeper symbolism going on. There's no core themes going on. There's barely a plot to this show, and it's so kind of shocking, really. I mean, Trigger has done better. They can do better. And I don't know, not since Aldnoah Zero, which, not too surprisingly, I guess, was also from studio, the SAO studio. What was it? Studio. Stay. The SAO studio, Sword Art Online studio. Yeah, which worked with Trigger to make this show, and it's frick. It's just terrible. Oh, it's just terrible. I, you know, you would think with Trigger involved, being that they are basically the successor to Gynax, they would never fall to this level of mediocrity, because even the stuff that wasn't, like, super great, like, maybe some of their stuff was hit or miss. Kill la Kill wasn't perfect. It had some pacing issues here and there. And stuff like Kisniver, okay, Kisniver wasn't great either, but at least that was an idea. At least that had some inspiration and some, it was kind of experimental. And maybe they have just been tripping over themselves too much, where they tried to play it super safe with something like this. Which is kind of obvious from the very first episode, because it just feels so Evangelion or whatever. But you still would think that they would have had something decent to rise above just, being this shallow Evangelion, Diebuster, Gurren Lagann ripoff that it is, with nothing unique of its own. It's got a decent opening intro song that I still listen to, so I guess it's got that. But there's nothing in this show I would want to revisit. Like, it is, so far for me, probably one of the worst, like, anime of the year so far that I've seen. Not counting stuff that was completely unwatchable, like Fist of the Blue Sky, but it's still really bad. Like, especially with the pedigree involved, I'm just disappointed. And that's a shame. I know a lot of you still love this show because 02, let's face it, she is waifu material. She is what you usually want when you go to your tsundere, your tsundere station. But there are better tsunderes out there, As the expression goes, there are plenty of tsundere in the sea. And, just order a figurine or something, because the show is not worth watching for any character. It's just terrible. And I've never seen a plot shit itself so much in its final episodes, what are now its final episodes. After dragging its feet for several episodes, we just get, aliens attack the planet. We find out they have a leader. The main character, Hiro or Jiro, whatever his name is, really loves 02. 02 really loves him. That's the plot. That's the whole plot. You don't actually need to watch this show to know anything more. It will just waste your time. The rest of it is basically just dicking around, slice of life bullshit. I think this show makes me want to watch Eureka 7, because I gave that show a lot of crap, saying a lot of the same things about that, but I knew that had qualities, and I knew that had great stuff in it. And at least that show was going somewhere. It wasn't wasting its time, even when it seemed to be. Even the most, like, laid-back episodes of that show were, had purpose, had themes it was working with. Darling in the Franxx is just, it's bad. I put it up there with other mecha shows like I'll Know a Zero, Dragonaut, whatever you can, Fafnir. It's crap. And I do not recommend it at all. So, I know this will come as a crushing blow to many of you, but that's just my opinion. That's my 2 cents in the bucket. And I'll see you all next time.